over to you.
Yep, hang on, I just have to click it away. Where's my cursor? All right. You got me?
Yes,
Yep.
loud and clear.
I wasn't aware that you expect me to talk now. I thought it was a conversation and Q&A, and so, but I can talk a little bit about Gigahertz, and
Yes.
because I visited them only a few months ago.
Oh,
We went,
really?
yeah, we went on a Europe trip, and I thought, oh, I might as well make it tax deductible. But I also wanted to meet the people who I constantly communicate with. When you years and years of emailing with someone, you want to know who they actually are. And so I went to Gigahertz and to Y-Shield as well, which was both
Excellent.
very interesting. And but leaving Y-Shield aside, Gigahertz have, yeah, sort of like in German it's called like a mid-sized company. And I met all the people in the different parts of the system, and what really impressed me was how German they are, and how quality conscious they are, and how something like shortcuts, or let's just do this for the money, or why can't we do this cheaper somehow, it's not in the heads. Like, it's a cultural thing. It's just, I just went, wow, everything was just so proper with them. And they were so, like, I had a long chat with especially the guy who invents all the instruments. He's basically their chief designer. And so that was really interesting. I wanted to know what's in the pipeline. And we talked about 5G, and the needs that people have, and the fears that they have, and how to meet all that with instruments. And I asked him about competition, like what are they called again? Those green ones that the American ones that many people use. Safe and sound. Yeah. And so they said, oh my God, the safe and sound. You know what's in that? The antenna is a metal plate. And so that's just the most horrendous thing that gigahertz could ever perceive as putting into an instrument. That's what they're like. But I said, well, it's affordable, and it gives people an indication. And you know, not everyone wants an expensive instrument from gigahertz, and it's easy to also, the safe and sound is really easy to use. You just pull it out of the pocket and turn it on. And so then, of course, they explained to me why it's not that simple. It would be nice if it was that simple, then they would have done it long ago. In fact, they worked. While I was sitting here, I was looking at an email they sent me about an instrument, because that's something else I've been nagging about, that they give us a combined high frequency instrument that covers the whole range, like the safe and sound does. And they started developing it, and then said, no, we can't do it. It's just impossible. And so for whatever reason, the wavelength and the size of the antenna and the different antennas they need for different wavelengths, and it's complicated and all physics, but it's not possible. So they're still selling two separate instruments for the high frequency range. One is for the 5 gigahertz, 3 to 10 gigahertz, and the other one is for below that. And it's going to stay that way. I said, well, if whatever you can do, keep it in mind, because it would be really nice to have. And maybe they put something together, but not sort of, I have a feeling that probably not, or very slowly, and eventually, I don't know in how many years' time. And so apart from that, they don't really, like, they're quite happy with their range, which is basically a lower range and a higher range. And the two boxes that I put together on my website for like the professional, or whatever I call it, that's the NFA 1000 and the HF59B, the top instruments that I get complaints about all the time, that they're difficult to use. And then I made the lower range, which is much more affordable. And I think for anyone who just starts out, that's a good starting point. It's close enough. You don't always need the 10th digit of something. You if it's beyond 1,000, then it's very bad for you. So you don't need to know whether it's 1,291 or 1,200 or 1,300 or it's all bad. So that's why I've started. That's why I put that sort of lower spec set together for building biologists, even though it's officially not the professional standard, but really, few people do this, and I think there's a huge demand for electropollution measurement. And I think it's always better to have something rather than, nothing, because it's too complicated. By the way,
Totally.
if anyone listening wants a second-hand set, there are two for sale that you can email me. I can get you in touch with these people.
Yeah.
Because they've just given up on it. And one of them has virtually never unpacked it. And, I think that's a great shame to make this huge investment in these superb, beautiful instruments and then not use them, or just say, oh, I just do, mold, or I give up altogether, when, there's definitely a demand for electropollution issues.
There is, and I think as well that's a little bit orchestrated as well from our side of things, that like we were getting people saying you can't do the higher frequencies, you can't measure this, and people then lost a bit of confidence to go out, because I agree with you, it's better to have something and show people, because most of their sources are these frequencies still anyway in the house. So it's very good for them to see that.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So what was I going to say? I forgot now. But definitely, like, check, and my approach is always the more people are qualified, and that's why I offer this additional workshop in May. The more people are qualified, the more people do it, the more promotion we have, the more awareness we have, the more business we get in the end. It's and there's just not enough moving in that area. I think it's a great area for building biologists. We can't just do mold, and why study all these subjects and then end up just doing mold? I mean, I do half of my my practice is mold now, and it's important. I'm not saying it's not important, but there's so many other aspects, and I keep explaining to people it's a holistic approach. So, and the EMR is definitely part of it. And I've seen such horrendous sleeping situations and homes recently that I just go, oh my God, if they wouldn't have called me, that can ruin someone's life. So yeah.
Definitely.
And,
Yeah, so okay, so no high frequency meeting for gigahertz. Yeah.
That's what I wanted to say. So about the high frequency, what I constantly get is, yes, but what about 5G? Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
5G is basically, and he explained that to me again, but I knew it, but I didn't ask him about it. He just said, oh, and then this 5G, people get on my nerves. He goes, because it's just a stronger 4G. It's not a completely new technology. It's partially new because it's split up into smaller antennas and so on, and it's got a bigger, considerably huge bandwidth, but it's not a new technology. Like the millimeter wave, that's a new technology, but we don't have that in Australia, and we won't have it for a while. And when we get it, yeah, whatever, we'll measure it, but they're really easy to shield, and don't go into buildings, don't go through clothes. And I think it was all a bit of a huge overreaction at some stage. And whatever is in Australia, you can measure with these instruments. With a higher frequency version, so it has to be the HFW35C, not the HF35C, to do that. Any other questions?
Yeah, let's open it up to everyone here. We've got a few of our great EMF people that specialize in EMFs. So if anyone has any questions about either the workshop or the meters or anything, speak now.
Well, while you're thinking, um, I wanted to say something
Yes.
about the NFA 1000 because
Yes.
I always say, well, at least you have to do the NFA 1000, and that's a huge chunk. That's expensive. But at the same time, it's the instrument that can log all the others, that pulls it all together. But most importantly to me is that with the smaller ones, the whatever they're called, ME 30 something, 50 something, um, you the earth potential to get an objective earth is really difficult. Sometimes you hammer a stake into the ground and try to connect to earth and the water pipes. It's always fun, and the earth in the power point is not always reliable. So you have to establish first that that's actually functioning before you plug in your instrument, have it on a cable, and then check the bed or the body voltage or whatever. So that's why if you want the accuracy of electromagnetic fields, and especially the electric fields in particular, the NFA is just so good and so easy to use and foolproof, really, because it's got the earth in itself. So you don't need to plug it in. You can, but I'm never doing it. Just hold it. So that's why I always say NFA 1000. Get at least get the NFA 1000 if you're a building biologist. And then, of course, the logging is can be important. Anyway, we'll cover those things again in the workshop.
Yes.
I know the manual is not everyone's cup of tea. So is there a question now? What was there?
Yes. Any questions? Open to the floor. We're getting some in the chat. Are you doing much with dirty electricity at the moment?
Ah, yes. Yes. Well, I always do because uh, it, and mostly it's not an issue, but sometimes it is. So again, the NFA 1000, um, if you set the on button to the middle position, it records to the memory card, and you plug that into the software on your laptop or whatever desktop, and then you can see the graph of the different frequencies, like the 50, 60 hertz one, and that's, well, in mine that's green, and then the red one is all the other frequencies, the sum of them. You can drill down, but I just look at what else is there, and then if there's a huge red peak, like sometimes the 50, 60 hertz is say 5 volt per meter, and the dirty electricity is 150 volt per meter. And that normally doesn't get caught by instruments because they're tuned to the 50, 60 hertz and maybe some harmonics on top of that. But to catch the whole mess of dirty electricity that's potentially there is quite important, because you could otherwise think, oh no, it's not that bad, 5 volt per meter. And then when you look at it on the computer, you go, oh my God, it's 50 or it's 150. It can be extremely more. And then yeah, so that's that, in that dirty electricity is important. And however, like from the more sort of academic viewpoint, it's hard to quantify what's actually wrong with it, and to qualify what's actually wrong with it. Like when you read these websites where it says, oh, certain frequencies are worse than others, and you particularly have to watch these because our filters that we have designed for those frequencies help. But there's just, like with so many of these things, there's just so little evidence for us to say, well, it is a problem. It's more anecdotal, really, with dirty electricity.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question?
Did that answer your question, Sally? I don't think. Yeah, we've got another message. I've got a big issue in my old house with it, as others with old houses I know. I moved the plug beside my computer.
Oh.
Again, and just while there's that question coming in, Cole, hello, you've got a question here too.
I do. I've just come from the dentist and half my face is numb.
Oh,
I'm
we want to see
sorry.
it. We want to see it.
No, you definitely do not. I've got two questions actually. First, in the literature, when I was doing my PhD on EMFs, I noticed that when it comes to participant exposure to EMFs, it's averaged out. So they're obviously using data loggers, personal monitors, and data loggers to say the average exposure is 8 microwatts per square meter, etc. Whereas what we're doing is measuring peak exposures and identifying sources, because the last thing I'm going to do is leave my gigahertz unit, and data log where these kids can access. It's not really viable because we're just doing spot measurements. So firstly, are gigahertz looking at bringing personal monitors that would be affordable, that enable us to data log? Because the research is showing averages over time as opposed to peak value. So you can't compare what we're doing with what the research is showing.
Yes. So, so there are a few things there. First of all, I almost misunderstood you when I'm talking, we just have to agree on language here. So EMF is electromagnetic fields and EMR is electromagnetic radiation. So you're talking about the radiation aspect.
RF,
So,
radio frequency.
And then yes. So on the gigahertz instruments, at least the better ones, you can set whether you want the average or the peak, like of the moment. So you're talking about during the day and night and week and whatever. So there are two different things here. So if you just the phone companies, when they say this is 500 microwatts per square meter, well, they actually count in milliwatts, 500 milliwatts per square meter, then that's the average of the peak where the pulse gets sent and the break in between, and then the next pulse. So the pulse could be 10,000. And that's one of the deceptions that they have. The damage is done by 10,000, not the break in between.
Yes.
Yes. So I always explain to people, if you drop a hammer on your toe and then wait half an hour and then drop it again and wait half an hour and then drop it again, does it stop hurting? Or can you work out the average of the pain for that and say, no, it doesn't really matter, just do it again, keep doing it. So it's that deception of the peak being ignored. And that's one thing. And then the other is when you take it through days, and then you have to include the weekend because that would be different again. There's Gigahertz doesn't have a personal instrument, because that really, you like to do it with, other than have really amazing tens of thousands of dollars instruments, is to use the HF59s and plug them into the NFA 1000, and then that way and connect it all to power, which is simple. That's how you do it, and you just have to lock the kids out of that room in the meantime. I don't know any other way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important that we explain that to clients. That's a fantastic analogy, because they're doing what they call the mean, the average over time.
Yeah.
Which
it's
is
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually a deception, a lie, a horrendous distortion of fact. It applies to nothing else. It's just so, again, the first person when that was first explained to me, this was on a EMR workshop in Germany. He said, well, what if I hit you in the face and then I come back after 2 minutes and hit you again? And you at the third time you say, oh, let's do it again. I worked out the average. It barely touches me. So, it's just completely ridiculous to think that way. And that's how we sold, oh, it's safe. But it's also important that we explain, like you said, that to our clients. That's something I always explain. That, and the other one is that the values that they then arrive at are done with the piece of meat and a thermometer inside. And if the piece of meat heats up more than 100 degrees, it might be or more than a degree, then it might be dangerous. So let's halve that, and it's safe. And it's just so absurd. But I'm always glad when clients challenge me about this. That was just my last client. Just the husband comes, husbands are always more skeptical. He comes and goes. Yes, but so when I went on the website, which is amazing that he did. I went on the website and it says under so and so and such and such. Oh, and that, then of course, I explained it to him and he went, "Oh my God." So yes, that's a good point. I'm glad you did a PhD in it.
Yeah, I'm trying to publish a randomized controlled trial on the impact of a baby monitor on healthy adult sleep. It's been rejected by 9 journals. I have 3 professors on the table who are experts on sleep and engineering, and they're saying, Cole, they don't want to publish this study. It's tight. The excuses have been so ridiculous, like there weren't enough participants in the study, but it was statistically significant. So there were enough participants. And, it's just because if you show a Wi-Fi enabled device caused clinical insomnia in 7 days in a third of the participants, it impacted non-REM because I measured EEG, I measured heart rate variability. Even the heart rate variability was reaching statistical significance, but based on our stats, we would have had to have had at least 22 participants to reach that statistical significance. So it's at a journal now and they're looking at it, but it just shows me when it comes to EMF research, and I did mention building biology in there in the paper, so it'll be good for our industry because I use that as the reference range for the study with a baby monitor that I bought from Kmart. And so it's just been a huge eye-opener as to the conflict of interest, publication bias, the difficulties in doing research in EMFs, not being able to get funding, and the huge conflict of interest by the journal editors, the journal examiners, the journal reviewers, who are not required to disclose their bias, but the people doing the research who are publishing, i.e. the authors, are. So it's just, the whole thing is a farce. It's really made me see the flaws in the scientific methodology and the huge conflict of interest that exists. And it's really sad to see, as you said, EMFs is a massive problem, but the demand for it is hardly there. I mean, it's starting to get some traction, but compared to mold, it's just not even started.
Yeah.
And yet,
it used to be the opposite.
Right.
Like years back, it was the opposite. Like I saw the mold problems everywhere, and people just didn't want to know about it. It was just impossible. It was, I pulled out my hair in despair with the mold, and suddenly, bang, it's there and everywhere. So, I'm hoping that something will happen with the EMR as well. On the other hand, there's so much misinformation, and it's kind of put into conspiracy and crazy land, and because there's so much misunderstanding and misinformation, it's easy to discredit people.
Well, there's so many companies that have come out to for shielding for EMFs that make so many promises for a few $100s or a few $1,000s, and they, if anything, they exacerbate the issues because shielding, because it's a last resort for us. We know if we shield, it often will attenuate one frequency and magnify another. So you have to constantly double check after the shielding that you haven't made another field worse. And this is the issue. It's more complicated than a lot of the other hazards that we're looking at, but it's definitely for insomnia and sleep disturbances. It's causing a worldwide epidemic amongst our kids.
Yeah.
And if you don't
sleep,
it's
not just that. That's, again, sleep is complex. And I just watched on the SBS Michael Mosley about sleep. He came to Australia. I don't know whether you saw it. It's worth watching. And there was nothing about EMR and EMF. I thought, it would be such an opportunity, but he doesn't even mention it. And it should be mentioned. I wish it was in connection to sleep, because I don't know, 70% of the population has sleeping problems. That's a good
40% of adults have clinical insomnia based on the research on the latest parliamentary inquiry that was 4 years ago. But it's definitely a big issue. The thing is, I've got professors who are experts on sleep who go around the world and speak about sleep. When I brought it to them that EMFs is a big problem for sleep because we see it anecdotally at the ground level all the time, They were shocked. They said, "Oh, we've never heard of this coal." They've
Oh,
never even looked at, and they're the ones talking at state conferences around the world. They're the experts
yes.
at RMIT, which is one of the largest universities in Australia. And they're going, "I've never heard of it. What are you talking about?" I said, "I
Yeah.
need to do research on this because this is huge and you're not even looking into it."
And just because they haven't, see, that's where it's unscientific, that they haven't heard of it, or whether then it can't exist, you know. Or the Earth is round, no one has said that before, it's flat, you know, like,
So
anyway.
exactly. And the research proves it, and now we can't publish it. Well, I mean, it will get published at some point, but because of the requirements when you do a PhD, you have to do a Q1 or Q2 journal that has a high impact factor. So
Well,
it's
good luck with it.
yeah, exactly. Good luck. That's why I've started drinking coffee in high doses again. Anyway, we'll get there. We need to get it out there. It's such a big problem, and I'm hopefully more building biologists will do double checks, even with a mold audit. Just check.
Oh, definitely.
Kelly?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, I just didn't listen for the last second because I discovered that the chat, and there is a comment. Oh, Nicole.
Yeah, we're going through the chat, and Nicole,
yeah,
the
okay.
other one about the videos
Videos.
on how to use each function.
Yes.
Yep.
So, I've been, oh my God, I've been harassing them over and over and over again. And I've spoken with the boss of Gigahertz twice. Now I emailed again and I said, I'm really sorry to again bring this up, but what happened to the videos? Oh, we still haven't. See, and this is where the German awkwardness is so painful to me. So they want to make English videos instead of just putting subtitles under the videos. They have videos. They have Gigahertz Academy, and then in that academy they have a collection of videos. And so I sent them software, like it's just an online thing that reads the video and gives you the subtitles. It takes 5 minutes. I send them that. I said, if you don't want to do it, I can do it. So I can only say it's coming now. They've been saying that forever. So with the proviso of what I just explained, it's definitely coming, and it's essential. I know, Nicole, that it's so important, and it's especially in English, and people don't read the manuals anymore, or rarely, or if they do, then they forget what they read in the previous chapter, and it's kind of difficult. When you see it visually, it's very different. So yes, the videos are coming, definitely coming with subtitles. They agreed now that yes, subtitles is easier. I don't want to bore you with the whole story, but it's unbelievable how difficult it's been. I came to the point of just thinking, I do them myself. I stuff this. But then when I visited them and I said, no, we understand, you know. So they do understand now, and they've got lots on their plate. By the way, this is outside, they're developing a really good indoor air quality monitor that seems to be in an affordable range. I put it on my website, even though it's not 100% out yet. If anyone is curious, it's yeah. Anyway, just leaving that aside. So
Is that
that's the
doesn't have
video.
that meter that doesn't have Wi-Fi functions or anything, Bluetooth or anything?
Sorry?
That meter, the indoor air quality meter?
No, that doesn't have Wi-Fi. No, you can turn it off, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It has a memory card in it.
All right. Check it out.
That's a big point. I used to sell the Yoohoo one, and then there's so many that all use Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the Yoohoo one is yeah, it's not very good for that.
Yeah. Well, you can turn it on and off the Wi-Fi, but anyway, no.
Yeah.
Steered away from it now.
Yeah, that was that question again about the Sally. Are you able to chat, or did you want me to I can just say it here anyway if you want. She's saying that yeah, moved the plug beside the bed, the computer, and had a massive difference and completely alleviated hip pain.
It's amazing how much it can do. That's why measuring is so important, finding out what causes it. and plugs.
And that's as opposed to filters. So what do we reckon? You know, what's the
Ah.
latest with filters, dirty electricity?
Yeah. So about the plugs, a plug is just a plug, but that probably had a transformer, a power plug to it, I would think. And that if they're cheap ones, they create dirty electricity. So I always say to people, get the expensive ones. If you can't measure yourself, just get an expensive charger for your whatever it is. And not the cheap ones, because they're cheap components and they produce dirty electricity. And sometimes, wow. Like I had a family, they must have had about 3 or 4, and the difference that made, it takes a while then at the client to work out what it is. I just said, pull them all out. And, when people see it on the laptop with the NFA software, that's just convincing. You don't need to say anything when they see how much changes by pulling out that plug. And, like Sally, who knows how reproducible that is, because she could just be affected by a certain frequency, whereas someone else sleeps there and has no problems at all. That's one of those things again. But because we are mostly dealing with really sensitive people, I just take the bottom line is that you're extra sensitive, and we need to look at the building biological standard and get everything as natural as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the filters, that's another huge topic in itself.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
The filters are mostly filtering higher frequencies, not the under, I think they start at hundreds of hertz. So everything below that is not measured, and that's all part of dirty electricity. And I haven't found a meter that filters that. I'm selling myself one of those that's really good, but only for the higher frequencies, which is more like when EMR gets into the lines. But what the dirty electricity mostly is, it's in lower frequencies, sort of between 50 and 1,000 or 50 and 500, and there's no filter for that. Not that I've ever seen one. And the Stetzers are a bit dubious because I've tried them, but because they have their own Stetzerizer and they kind of prove their own point with that. So yeah, filters. And I asked about it again, and the answer is, well, that was a conversation with Y-Shield. Of course, they were shielding. You got to deal with the cabling, deal with the issue. Filtering in that frequencies doesn't work, and I don't know why. It must have something to do with the wavelength, or unfortunately, I'm not good at physics and that kind of thing.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions with the meters, the workshop coming up in May?
Oh yeah. So the workshop in May that I've offered for the second time, because people always say, do this workshop, can't you offer it again? We'll come. And then I offer it again now, and no, we've got 4 so far. So if anyone else is interested, it's in the Blue Mountains. Last time I came to Melbourne, and I thought, no, I'm not doing that again. If no one from Melbourne comes, then why should I make travel for 2 days and all that? So I'm offering it here in the Blue Mountains, and so at the moment 4 people are coming. It's meant for, you hopefully all got invitations to it, because I just went through my customer list for Gigahertz instruments and wrote everyone. It's meant for building biologists who want to hone their skills and sort of look at the instruments and go, so what am I supposed to do with this, and how can I map this, or how can I benefit of that, and what's that setting even? I've never used that. So just to practice, to compare, to explain, to work together on it, and to report on what we're finding. So the agenda that I sent out, people seem to like. Otherwise, I'm happy to make adjustments if someone wants something else. It's just that I'm also saying in the invitation that you can't just come with never having used your instruments, because then we go back to square one and the other half of the group sits there twiddling their thumbs and doesn't want to go through the basics again. So we actually do actual measurement, and then we check a house and compare our results and that sort of thing. I just want people to go away and say, okay, I know how to do it now. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll be doing the NFA 1000 as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The NFA 1000, and then the high frequency, either like whatever people have.
Yeah.
As long as they cover the whole range. So it can be the HF35C and the HFW35C, or the HF59B and the HFW59D. So I don't. they have a logic behind their naming, which is really awkward. But I've learned it by now. So anyway, whatever high frequency, as long as you cover the whole range. If you don't, then you don't. But it's to your benefit if you can work there with the whole range with us.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions from anyone? No.
No. So okay. So I hope we've answered most things, or you've heard what you were hoping for.
I think everyone was maybe thinking there might be a 5G meter coming. Oh, no, I don't like saying 5G either. The high frequency meter.
Ah, yes. Well, for a while that was in the works, but like I said, that's last year. They said no, we can't overcome those technical difficulties. Which they could have taken some shortcut and done something half-baked, but that's like I said, that's not what they do.
Yeah. And there isn't a lot of good. I'm getting a bit of bad feedback as well about the antenna in the safe and sound meter as well for the high frequencies.
They test all these. They test the whole. Like I don't remember all of them, but they see on a tri-field meter and things like that. They buy them all and test them in the lab. There are lots of Chinese ones now that he said we can't test all of those, but every now and then they go and buy another one and another one and test them, take them apart, and because they have these labs and test rooms where they create frequencies and then have a tens of thousands of dollars meter versus theirs, and so make sure theirs is good. And what was I going to say? So they do that with those cheaper ones, of course, to see whether anyone does a miracle with them. And yeah, God, when you said, I was shocked. I never forget when you said, well, there's a metal plate in that thing. That of course it receives something, but if you think of the Christmas tree antenna of the gigahertz instruments, that where everything has its place to the millimeter to catch certain wavelengths, and then that inside the instrument gets computed and translated into a reading that combines all that. That's a huge achievement to do. And you can't do that with the metal plate. You really can't. I mean, I've compared the safe and sound with the gigahertz ones, of course, myself, even though that's not as relevant as what they do in the lab. But again, as an indicator, I'm just, you probably have the same experience when you have clients and they say, oh, I've got a coronet, and it does this and this and that. I've had instances where the coronet goes crazy and there was nothing there, barely anything.
Yeah.
Because it's not frequency compensated. So it just, because, it was just at the right distance or whatever, and bang, it goes crazy.
Yeah.
And actually, well, so there's quite a science behind those instruments, and their design, unfortunately, comes at a price. But nothing is made in China. They're allergic against making anything in China. I said, well, why don't you subcontract this out? Oh no. We have all this. They even print their circuit boards themselves. So, are you still there?
Yes.
Kelly?
We're all still here.
Oh, something's
Hello.
freezing.
Well, that's you freezing, yeah. Are there any more questions? Joachim is freezing up.
Kelly, can you put in the chat or somewhere on the SBV when those talks by Joachim are coming up? That would be good to put in the newsletter.
Oh yeah, the workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've lost him though, right at the last minute. Yep, he's gone. Oh, well, he'll. Oh no, there. Definitely lost him. All right. Well, if he doesn't jump back on, I'll finish the recording now anyway, just because Joachim has dropped off.